It was stuck under my wiper blade. No stamp. No return address. Just my name in handwriting I hadn't seen in 15 years. I froze in the parking lot, right outside the diner where I eat alone every Thursday night. Same spot, same time, for the past decade. The envelope was soft. The ink had bled a little from the rain. I just stood there staring at it like it might detonate. Inside, one photo and a note. The photo was old. I was in it. So was she. We were younger, happier, dumber. The note. It read, "If you ever cared, meet me at the Overlook. 8 p.m., I won't ask twice." No name. But I didn't need one. I knew who it was. You don't forget the woman who burned your whole life down and walked away without looking back. Clarice. She was a ghost in my head for over a decade. And now, suddenly, she wasn't. I didn't know if I wanted to scream or cry or just get in the car and drive until my tires gave out. But I didn't do any of those things. I just stood there, reading that note over and over again until the sky turned orange and the streetlights blinked on. 15 years. 15 years since she packed a bag and disappeared into a man's car that wasn't mine. 15 years since she left our house, our life, our marriage, because she wanted something more. And that something more turned out to be another woman's husband. A secret I wasn't supposed to find out. But I did. And now, just when I finally rebuilt, she wants to see me? Why now? Why after all this time? Why after what she did? And most terrifying of all, why did I feel my hands shaking like some lost boy hoping for closure? I told myself I wasn't going. I told myself I burned that bridge long ago. But by 7:45, I was already driving up the hill. The same one where everything once ended. And I had no idea what was waiting for me at the top. The Overlook hadn't changed. Still smelled like pine and gasoline. Still had that one broken bench with the initials carved into it. J+R, 2009. I parked 2 rows behind where I used to sit alone during those first months after she left. Yeah, I used to come up here. Pathetic, right? Like some stray dog hoping she'd drive by and regret it all. The wind picked up right before 8 o'clock. I sat in the car, engine off, keys in my lap. And I told myself I wasn't getting out. I told myself this was a trap, not a literal one, but an emotional landmine wrapped in lipstick and silence. And yet, I got out anyway. I didn't see her at first. I actually thought she stood me up, and I won't lie. I felt relieved. But then I heard her heels click on the concrete. Slow, deliberate. Like she knew exactly what kind of impact she was about to make. And there she was. Clarice. 15 years older. And somehow, exactly the same. Her hair was shorter, darker, maybe dyed. But her eyes? Same ice-cold blue. Same eyes that once looked at me like I was everything, and then, just as quickly, like I was a chore she couldn't wait to check off her list. She didn't speak at first. Just stood there with her arms crossed like I was late to something I never agreed to. And then she said it. "You still come here." Like she knew. Like she watched. Like I was still some sad, predictable man she could read like a menu. I didn't answer. I wanted to ask what she wanted. Why now? What she thought she was doing, digging her fingers back into a chapter she'd slammed shut. But all I said was, "You're bold, showing up like this." She smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was that same smug twist I remembered from the last year of our marriage. The smile that said she always had a secret. And guess what? She still did. "I heard about your mom," she said. "I'm sorry. That hit harder than I expected. My mom passed last year." Clarice never called. Never wrote. But somehow she knew. And that meant she'd been watching. Following. Maybe even waiting. "You didn't come here for condolences," I muttered. "No," she admitted. "I didn't." Silence stretched between us, wide and heavy. Then she pulled out a folded piece of paper from her coat pocket. She held it out like a peace offering. I didn't take it. "What is that?" Her voice shook for the first time. "It's something I should have given you 15 years ago." I stared at that paper like it might burst into flames. I didn't touch it. Couldn't. "Why now, Clarice?" I asked, barely keeping my voice level. "You disappeared. You left me for a married man, and then you vanished. Not a word. Not a single damn word for 15 years. You think you can just drop in and hand me some paper like it erases that?" She didn't flinch. "He's dead." 3 words. And just like that, the ground shifted. I blinked. "What?" She looked away, toward the tree line. "The man I left you for. Elijah. He died 3 months ago. Heart attack." I didn't know what I was supposed to feel. Relief? Justice? Some sick sense of closure? But instead, I felt nothing. Just a dull ache in my chest where old pain used to burn bright. I wasn't even allowed at the funeral, she added. His wife made sure of that. Oh, his wife. The one she swore he was leaving. The one she mocked when I begged her to think this through. The one who existed in every lie she told me that final year. And now she stood here, like a widow without a title, holding a letter I was too afraid to touch. What's in it? I asked. Her voice cracked. The truth. But the truth, I'd soon find out, wasn't just about him. It was about me. About something she hid from me long before she ever walked out. And once I opened that paper, everything would change again. I don't even remember taking the paper from her hand. 1 second I was refusing to touch it, and the next I was holding it like it might bite me. It was soft, creased from years of hiding, but I could tell it had never been opened before. It wasn't aged with time. It had been protected, preserved. Waiting. I looked at her again, standing just a few feet away, arms now hanging at her sides like she'd already surrendered. Her mouth parted like she wanted to explain what I was about to read, or maybe warn me, but I didn't give her the chance. I unfolded it. The handwriting hit me like a freight train. It was mine. My writing. My ink. My style. But I hadn't written it. No, I'd never written this. The top read, "To Everett." From her. At first, I thought it was some sick prank. That she copied something I wrote years ago and twisted it into a fake. But as I read, I realized the truth was so much worse. It was a letter from a girl named Emmy. Except, I had no idea who Emmy was. Not until the 5th line. That's when the word daughter showed up. My knees buckled. I stumbled back and had to sit on the old bench behind me. The wind kept whipping around us, but I couldn't feel it. All I felt was the pounding of my heart and the sound of blood rushing through my ears. Daughter. My daughter? The letter wasn't long. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't the kind of message a child writes after years of hate or longing. It was careful, polite, like she didn't want to scare me off. She wrote about her favorite band, her major in college, how she's allergic to mangoes, how she's bad at math like her mom, and apparently, like me. She'd known about me for a long time, she said. But Clarice had told her not to reach out. Not until the time was right. Not until he's ready. What the hell does that even mean? I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the letter into the trees and demand answers, but I couldn't. I just sat there, silent, staring at the name at the bottom of the page like it was written in another language. Emmy Langford. Langford. That was Clarice's maiden name. So she never gave our daughter my last name. Never gave me a chance to hold her. Name her. Know her. I looked up at Clarice, and I swear if looks could kill, she would have turned to ash right then and there. You had my child? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. It was all I could get out. She nodded. Didn't speak. Just nodded. I laughed. Not out of humor. Out of pure shock. And you never thought to tell me? You took her and ran off with him? Tears welled up in her eyes. I didn't know I was pregnant when I left. That didn't make it better. Not even close. You could have called, I hissed. You could have written. You could have told me at any point in the last 15 damn years. I was scared, Everett, she said. I didn't think you'd want anything to do with her. Or with me. My jaw dropped. So you made that decision for me? She nodded again, quieter this time. Yes. And that was when something broke inside me. Something deep and buried. Not anger. Not grief. It was betrayal. The kind that doesn't fade. The kind that roots itself in your bones and lives there. 15 years. 15 birthdays. First steps. First words. Band concerts. Field trips. College acceptance letters. All gone. Stolen. Erased from my life like I never had the right to them in the first place. And all she could say was she was scared. I stood up. Hands shaking. Letter still in my grip. Why now? I asked her. Why give this to me now? She wiped her face and whispered. Because she's looking for you. And I'm terrified she'll hate me for what I've done. Too late. Too damn late. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. I drove past my apartment 3 times, but the idea of sitting in that silent space, just me and the hum of the fridge, made my chest seize up. So I ended up in the parking lot of a motel off Route 41. I didn't even check in. I just sat in the car with the engine off and the heater running, the letter still in my lap, like some kind of ghost that refused to leave. Every word from Emmy's note played on repeat in my head. The casual way she mentioned things, like I was already supposed to know. Her favorite color. Her dreams of becoming a vet. Her part-time job at some animal shelter. The fact that she learned to drive in a parking lot, just like my mom said you taught her once. Except I didn't. I never taught her anything. I wasn't there. I wanted to scream until my lungs gave out. I wanted to rip something in half. But I didn't. I just sat there like a coward, swallowing the grief like it was my fault I never knew. Clarice hadn't tried to reach out again. No calls. No texts. Nothing. Just silence. She probably thought I needed time. She was right. But also, I didn't want her to reach out. Not yet. Because if I saw her face again that soon, I honestly don't know what I'd say. Or do. By morning, my body felt like it had aged 10 years overnight. I went to work, tried to pretend I could function, but I couldn't even remember how to use the damn register. My manager sent me home after an hour, probably thinking I was drunk or high. If only it were that simple. Back at the apartment, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at my old wedding photo. I don't know why I still had it. It was buried under junk in a drawer I rarely opened. But there it was. Clarice in her off-white dress, smiling like she had no idea what she'd be capable of years later. And me? I looked stupid, genuinely happy. I hated that guy. I picked up my phone. I don't know when I decided to do it, but I was already dialing before I could stop myself. She answered on the first ring. Everett. I want to see her, I said. I don't care how you set it up, but I want to meet my daughter. Silence. Then a quiet, okay. Does she know who I am? I asked. She knows of you, but she's never met you. She thinks I didn't want her. I didn't say that, Clarice replied, her voice cracking. But she assumed. She asked why you never wrote. Why you never showed up. And I didn't correct her. I couldn't. I couldn't speak. I was gripping the phone so tightly it felt like it might snap in half. I didn't know what to say, Everett. How do you explain something so selfish without sounding like a monster? I didn't answer. Because yeah, she was a monster. Or at least, she had been. The kind that smiles while destroying your whole future with someone else's promises. She wants to meet you, Clarice added after a pause. But she's nervous. I didn't tell her I contacted you yet. She's been trying to find you on her own. I just got ahead of her. When? I asked. When can I see her? Clarice hesitated. She works weekends, but she's off this Friday. We could meet at the lake. The old dock. It's quiet. She likes it there. I agreed, hung up, and immediately regretted everything. Because suddenly, the panic hit. What do you say to someone who's lived their whole life thinking you didn't care? What do you do when your daughter's first impression of you is 15 years too late? I looked at myself in the mirror, and for the first time in a long time, I hated what I saw. Not because of the aging lines or the tired eyes, but because I didn't even know who I was anymore. Not a husband. Not a father. Just a man who got left behind. And in 3 days, I was supposed to be someone's dad for the first time, with no script, no preparation, and nothing to offer but guilt. Friday came faster than I expected, but every hour felt like a week. By the time I pulled up to the lake, my palms were sweating so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. I sat in the car with the engine off, watching the dock through the windshield like it was some kind of stage, and I was about to walk on with no lines, no costume, and no clue how the play ends. Clarice was already there. She stood near the edge of the dock, arms wrapped around herself, wind blowing strands of her hair across her face. She didn't wave, just nodded once, slow, like this wasn't surreal for her. Like she hadn't stolen a decade and a half from me. Then I saw her. Emmy. She was leaning against the railing with her back to me, kicking the side of her sneaker against a post. Black hoodie, faded jeans, her hair pulled into a messy bun. She looked ordinary. Beautiful, but not in some movie star way. In a way that made my stomach twist because I could see me in her. Her posture, the slope of her shoulders, something in the way she tilted her head. Clarice stepped toward her and whispered something. Emmy turned, and for the first time in my life, I saw my daughter's face. She looked right at me and didn't smile. She didn't cry, didn't rush forward, just studied me with this guarded, almost clinical expression, like she was trying to match the myth to the man. I walked up slowly, heart thundering so loudly I could barely hear myself speak. Hi, I said, my voice cracking worse than I expected. Hi, she answered. Flat, not cold, just careful. Clarice stepped back, letting us have space. I wanted to say something meaningful, something that would fix the time I'd lost, but all that came out was, you look like your mom. She shrugged. That's what people say. I laughed nervously. I was hoping you'd say you look like me. She raised an eyebrow. I wouldn't know. Those words hit like a slap. Not cruel, just true. She wasn't being rude. She was being honest. And I didn't have the right to expect warmth. I was a ghost to her. A name. A story. Maybe a disappointment she spent years trying not to think about. I swallowed hard. I didn't know. I swear to you, Emmy. I didn't know about you. I figured, she said. I hoped. Because if you did know and still stayed away. Her voice cracked, just barely. I stepped closer. If I'd known God, I would have moved mountains to find you. She nodded slowly but didn't say anything back. Clarice stood behind her like some worn-out shadow. She looked away when I caught her eye, and good, because I didn't want her anywhere near this moment. I turned back to Emmy. Would you ever want to talk? Really talk? Sometime? She hesitated. Then, with the faintest trace of emotion, said, maybe. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no. And somehow, that tore me up more than anything else had. I stayed at the lake long after they left. Emmy had said she had to get to work, and Clarice walked her back to the car like everything was normal. Like this wasn't a life-altering moment for me. For us. They drove off without another word, and I just sat on that splintered dock bench until the sun disappeared behind the trees. I should have felt peace. Closure, maybe. I met my daughter. She didn't scream. Didn't run. That should have been a win. But something about the whole thing, it didn't sit right. There was a crack in it. Like a glass surface with a hairline fracture I couldn't quite see yet, but I felt it. In my gut. The next day, I couldn't stop replaying our conversation. Every look. Every word. Every second. And then something she said came back to me. Something small. Almost throwaway. She'd mentioned taking care of her little brother. At the time, I didn't even catch it. I was too focused on breathing through my panic. But now, sitting alone at my kitchen table with the letter still folded beside my coffee mug, that word hit me like a truck. Brother. Clarice only had one child when she left me, Emmy. I knew that much. She was barely a few weeks pregnant, by her own admission. So who was the brother? And more importantly, whose was he? I tried not to spiral. Maybe she remarried. Maybe she had a second kid with someone else. None of it was my business, right? Except it was. Because this wasn't just about me and Emmy anymore. This was about what Clarice hid. Again, I broke. I picked up the phone and called her. She answered after a few rings, voice cautious. Everett, I need to ask you something, I said. And I need the truth. All of it. No more edits. No more I didn't want to hurt you crap. Silence. You told me you didn't know you were pregnant when you left. Yes. And you told me you raised Emmy alone. I did. Then who was her brother? I could almost hear her blink. Then, a slow, shuddering breath. I was hoping that wouldn't come up yet, she finally said. Well, it did, I snapped. So talk. She hesitated for a moment too long. Then, his name is Thomas. He's 12. 12. 12. Not 15. Not born right after she left me. No, born years later. You had another kid, I said, barely believing my own voice. With him? With Elijah? She didn't answer at first, and that was my answer. I closed my eyes and leaned back in the chair, gripping the armrest like it would keep me from losing my mind. Did he know? I asked. He did. Eventually. I swallowed hard. And did she? Did Emmy know you gave her a sibling while you kept her father out of her life? She figured it out on her own. She was old enough to ask questions. But she and Thomas are close. I wanted to scream. Not because she had another child. She was free to do whatever she wanted after she left. But because she built a family with the man she betrayed me for, while cutting me out of the one I didn't even know I had. You said he died, I said slowly. Elijah, 3 months ago? Yes. So what? Now that he's gone, you want me to fill the empty chair? No, she said quickly. No, Everett, it's not like that. I didn't come to you for help or support. I came because she started looking for you, and I realized I couldn't keep pretending the past didn't happen. I laughed bitterly. You're still pretending. You're just getting better at hiding the lies inside the truth. She didn't respond, just breathed into the phone, quiet and broken. I hung up, and this time, it wasn't just pain I felt. It was fury, because now I realized I'd been robbed of more than time. I'd been erased, replaced, and Emmy deserved to know everything. Not just the version Clarice fed her. But the question was, could I tell her without losing the tiny chance I had left? I didn't call Emmy. I couldn't. Not yet. After finding out about her brother, my mind was a mess of things I wanted to say, but didn't know how to. So I did something that felt safe. I wrote a letter. 2 pages. Honest. Careful. No accusations. Just me, finally trying to speak to her without my own panic getting in the way. I dropped it in her mailbox without knocking. That was 3 days ago. And then this morning, my phone buzzed. It was her. Just a single text. Can we meet again? I said yes before I even finished reading it. We met at a coffee shop off the highway. Neutral territory, her idea. She was already there when I walked in, sipping something with too much whipped cream and way too many sprinkles. I almost smiled. Almost. She didn't stand when I came over. Didn't hug me. Just gestured to the seat across from her and said, "I read your letter." I nodded. Yeah. It was a lot. I know. She looked out the window for a moment, then back at me. Is it true you didn't know about me until a few weeks ago? I looked her straight in the eyes. It's true. Every word. She stirred her drink, slow. And is it also true my mom never even tried to tell you? I hesitated, but only for a second. Yeah, that's true too. I expected anger. Maybe tears. But what I didn't expect was the question she asked next. Why didn't you come find me sooner? It knocked the wind out of me. Even though I knew what she meant, even though it wasn't fair, it still hurt like hell. I didn't even know you existed, Emmy, I said, voice cracking. And by the time I found out, you were already grown. I didn't know if I had the right to show up in your life. She didn't say anything, but her silence said everything. After a long pause, she finally whispered, I used to imagine what it'd be like to meet you. When I was younger, I used to wonder if you'd be proud of me. God, that wrecked me. I am proud of you, I said. Even without knowing you, I somehow always felt like I was missing the best part of myself. For the first time, her face softened. But it didn't last. She leaned in slightly. So what happens now? I didn't have an answer. Because as much as I wanted to move forward, I knew there were still pieces of this story buried beneath Clarice's silence, and maybe even Emmy's. And before anything could truly begin, those pieces had to come out. We met again 2 weeks later. Same spot. Same table. Emmy had her usual overloaded coffee, and I brought nothing but nerves. We talked more this time. Real talking. No sharp questions. No long silences. Just a messy, human conversation between 2 people trying to figure out how to make space in each other's lives. She told me about her art. About the shelter where she volunteered. About how she used to stare at the driveway as a kid, wondering if someone, anyone, would pull in and say they'd come back for her. That broke something in me. I think she saw it too. She reached across the table, real slow, and put her hand over mine. No words. Just that small touch. And I swear I felt years of guilt lift just enough for me to breathe. I didn't ask her to forgive Clarice. That wasn't my place. And I didn't try to explain what her mother did. That wasn't my battle to fight. Not anymore. Instead, I told her the truth. About how I fell apart when Clarice left. About the nights I sat in a motel parking lot, not even sure why I was still breathing. About how I blamed myself for not being more exciting, more successful, more enough. She said, I think you were just with the wrong person. That stuck with me. And she was right. A month later, Emmy asked me to come to her campus art show. I showed up early, terrified, wearing a blazer I hadn't used in years. The kind of event I'd missed her whole life. And there she was, surrounded by her work, laughing with classmates, alive and brilliant in a way that made my chest ache. She saw me and waved. Then she introduced me to her friends. And she said it, casually, like it had always been true. This is my dad. Just like that. Not Everett. Not the guy I met a few months ago. Dad. I almost lost it right there. After the show, we walked to my car. She hugged me, the kind that holds tight, not just polite, and asked if I wanted to meet her little brother sometime. I said yes. I never thought I'd get that chance. I thought I'd been erased. But here I was, being drawn back in by the one person I never knew I needed most. I still don't speak to Clarice much. And that's okay. Some stories don't need a perfect ending. Just a new beginning. And somehow, against all odds, I got mine.